Welcome to Nuggets with Sauce, the podcast dishing up golden nuggets of wisdom and insight you can really sink your teeth into. I'm your host, Michelle Arntz. My guests and I serve up a saucy take on common business challenges here that feeds your hunger for knowledge and thought leadership. So let's dig in. Well, hello and hey, everybody. Welcome to another fantastic episode of Nuggets with Sauce. I am your host, Michelle Arntz, Lazarus Learning, and I am super excited today because I've got Rachel Boehm with me. That is Boehm like fame, and famous is for knowing what she knows, and we're going to dig in a moment here and find out exactly what that is. But Rachel, welcome
Thank you.
Nuggets. I know that you and I are going to cover a lot of good territory here, and I think we're going to have some good sauce.
I think so too.
Some very tasty sauce in the conversation. So as always on Nuggets with Sauce, I love to ask my guests to introduce themselves without using their job title. So please go ahead and let our audience know, Rachel, what is the thing that gets you out of bed every day? What fires you up? What's the fight? What's the good fight that you're fighting these days in the leadership space?
You know, when you told me I was going to have to say it that way, I was thinking through all these things. And I mean, I would say it in a couple of different ways. I'm a master at work-life integration. So it's just the ability to share that skill with others. But like, I think what gets me out of bed is just, I love life. Like, I mean, I love sleep.
Yeah.
But but I'm excited for life. So it's just like, great, new day. Let's keep going. Let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, love and life. And, you know, I think you just used a very important word that I know we're going to dive into. You said work-life integration.
I did.
Not balance. And I think that might even be nugget number one on the list. But just before the other thing I always love to ask my gal who loves life, and that is the best reason ever to get out of bed every day. You know that I'm with you. What would be a recommended read, listen, or watch? What's something you think our audience should be paying attention to?
I just went and saw Fall Guy or The Fall Guy, the new movie out about stunt workers. It was phenomenal.
Oh,
like I have a background in that industry, not stunt, but film television. And I mean, I learned so many things, and it was just there in every way that movie was just utter perfection. Like I just absolutely loved it. So it's worth seeing it in the theaters.
The people that are willing to risk their lives to make it on the screen, that takes a very particular mindset.
Yes.
Those people definitely love life and live it to the fullest.
They are not resting on their laurels, that is for sure.
I have not seen that movie yet, so now I'm definitely going to make a point of checking it out. Okay, so The Fall Guy. Perfect. All right. Yeah. Now, all that set aside, I really wanted you to be a guest on the podcast because what you do on a day-to-day basis and how you help people, I think is super insanely important and very, very interesting. So, and this is where I want to go back to what I said a minute ago about the interesting that you used integration, not balance. And can I just out of the gate ask you, why did you choose? Because we hear a lot of people talk about work-life balance, like everything's on a scale. Can you please illuminate why you chose a different word and what is the fundamental difference there?
Yes. And to do that, I have to take even one step farther back. So I hate is a strong word, but I'll use it. I really hate, abhor, dislike, whatever. Honestly, the phrase work, life, anything, because to me, it's all life.
Yeah.
And by saying work, life, it's like work should be this thing. And then life should be this lovely thing, right? But work is a part of life. It can bring you like fulfillment. It can help. I mean, there's a reason we are driven to do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I need people to be able to find me on the internet. like I need client. Yeah. Right. Like to have a business, to have people to like, share this work with, like, I need people to know I exist. So meet myself in the middle was using work-life integration, not work-life balance. Because like personal and professional isn't as trendy, nor is like the super nerdy term of work slash non-work. Like nobody's searching for that.
Yeah.
So I can better stomach work-life integration, work-life balance. I mean, it is so used. And I think most people would see them interchangeably, but the people that I talk to, they're almost burnt out on the phrase work-life balance. Right. And by burnout, I don't mean the real term like you and I are going to dig into probably. I mean, like they're just over it.
We're sick of it.
Yeah, they're
We're
sick. You're sick of it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, balance, people don't hear it as a verb, they hear it as a noun. Like, okay, once I get there, like nobody breathe. I finally balanced it.
I got
Don't
balance.
move. Right. Don't move.
Well, you have to bring balance to the force for a start. Yeah, I think people, and doesn't it kind of end up, to me, balance ends up feeling like, because of course you think in your head it's like a scale or whatever, and it's like something has to give for something else to take. And so it's always this zero-sum game of
Well,
trying.
yeah. And I think you are, I mean, even with integration, right? That is like you're always adjusting.
Mhm.
But that's not a like that's what being alive is. Like your body is constantly adjusting to temperature changes. And I mean, so I think a lot of it is just reframing like, hey, like find the joy in the adjustment, but focus on what you can control. I mean, now we're gonna like dig into like all the tools and tactics. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's just understanding that like you're not gonna, it's work-life balance or work-life integration, whatever you want to call it, whatever sits better for you. It's not a final destination. It is a way of life.
I think that, okay, that's, bam, what a juicy freaking nugget into right there. I think because no, truly, because let's chew on that for a second, shall we?
Okay. Yeah, let's do it.
That is that I think there is, this is mission impossible. Okay, now we're mixing up our movie metaphors and everything. Okay, these are never really going to get there. To your point, it's the journey, not the destination. And maybe that's what frustrates, sorry, hairball, gagging a little bit on, I'm so chewing on this concept, but I think it's super important because I think too many of us get stuck in this notion. Do you find this where it's like, I'm trying to find this end game because, right, if balance is a noun and I'm constantly chasing this thing and it's not the activity of it, it's this end game item, like I'm supposed to stick it on the shelf and go, there's my balance. You're never going to get it. Right. And so change thinking in a way that says, it's about understanding that things are always going to be a little in flux. They're always going to be a little bit adjusting. Some days are going to be more work if we want to run with this. And some days are going to be a little more quote unquote life. And that's okay. And it's, am I making
well, and I think,
like
yeah.
And to wrap our heads around.
And I think an analogy, I mean, there's a couple of things, right? So an analogy that I definitely want to make sure I say, to build off your point is I had a friend once and she was about to get married and she shared with me something that her dad had told her. And this was years ago, like maybe almost like 20 years ago. I will never forget it. And I think it's very applicable to what we're talking about. So what he told her is like a marriage is never, or a healthy relationship, whether you're married or not, is never 50-50, like always 50-50. Some days it's 20-80.
Mm-hmm.
Other days it's 70-30. It might be 45-50. But as long as everybody, like it comes out to 100 and you're there picking up for each other, right? Like at the end of the day, it adds up to this kind of 50-50, right? So if you think about it that way, like your life, your whole life, you're gonna have all of these different variables. And it's your job, if you care to make it so, to figure out what is the right mix for you today. Right? Do you need absolute, like, are you like craving family time? So it doesn't matter if you have alone time because you need that family time, right? Or is it like, oh my God, people have just been at me all day. Like I just need 5 extra minutes in the car. So I'm going to take the long way home before I walk into like a potential tornado at the house, right? Like but it's that self-awareness, it's checking in with yourself and knowing that you are allowed to do that.
Bingo. There's another giant nugget. You're allowed to do that.
Yeah, you're allowed to define it for yourself.
Okay.
So work-life balance, again, it's not that thing you put on the shelf. It's not like the same for everyone. It's what does that look like for you in this stage in life? Because also, guess what?
That will
You're
change.
going to figure it out for you now, and then life is going to throw you a plot twist, and you're going to have to figure it out again.
Yeah.
So when I'm coaching someone, I'm trying to, yes, like solve the immediate sense and the immediate issues, but also teach them the skills so that even if, I mean, I always would love to keep working with my clients, but the goal is to kind of also put myself out of business one client at a time. Right. Otherwise, I'm not really doing my job.
No.
It's to teach them the skills so that in 10 years from now, right, if I decide to go start my band or whatever, like they're, they know the skills. And I just threw another one at you. Like they have the skills.
A band.
Right. I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
They have those skills to go, okay, wait a minute. I just need, new stage of life. I actually want to do this new chapter. I need to do this. My kids are older. How can I adjust this?
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's super huge. And again, it's one of those things that, it's funny what we will teach or what we will focus on teaching people. And it's as often as not, listen, I'm a former teacher and, you never really hang that up. I'm married to a teacher. I mean, I get it. But, so many of the things that are part of what I would call our formal education are actually not the most useful things. It's the informal stuff, like what you're trying to educate people around that I think is super important. The idea of recognizing how many of us have even been given the tools and opportunity to sit back and reflect and go, to your point, what is it for me? Like, what is my level of self-awareness? We don't spend a lot of time on self-awareness. And then we think it's selfish to be self-aware. Oh, you're so selfish because you want shut up. Okay, we're all wired first and foremost for self-preservation. Duh.
Yes.
I've never watched anybody drowning. It's like they're going to shove everybody's head under the surface to keep their own up. Now, we don't want to be that way. That's not what the end game is. But, I often say, as the airlines will tell us, put your own oxygen mask on first. And so that I think that's a very interesting point of, and, for leaders and people who are listening to this or watching this to be like, do you have what you need to have that level of awareness at whatever, to your point, and I love this too, what point in time are you dealing with? What do you need now? Have you paused for a moment to think about, at this stage in my life with this stuff going on, this is what I need to feel like I have. There's all these moving parts in your life. Are you getting it fulfilled in the ways that you need? And if you're not, what can or will you do about that? And so how many of us are feeling exhausted, burned out, fed up, frustrated, pissy pants about whatever? Yeah, sometimes, I have Princess Pissy Pants moments where I'm like, my life. But I do that. But the bottom line is, having that ability to sit back and think, where is my cup full and where maybe isn't it as full as it could be? And what does that do to us when something is overflowing, and it could be for all the right reasons, and then other spots in our lives are a little more empty. That's
so I'm big into analogies. So one for that I always use with my clients. What?
That's why I like you. I love analogies too. It's a great way of understanding things. Please share.
Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But sometimes they're just super weird when they're mine. But the one that one of the ones that I use with my clients is actually a well-known exercise. It's called, if people are going to Google it, I'm sure I'm giving you permission, whatever. It's called the Wheel of Life or the Wellness Wheel, depending on where you're getting it from. And I liken it to a Trivial Pursuit game piece because I'm a nerd. So we write it down. So there's like all these different pie pieces, right? It's divided. So if you haven't seen this before, you're Googling it, it's like the things that are known that you need to survive, right? So there's wellness and there's well-being. So there's all these different sections of life, like social, spiritual. If spiritual rubs you the wrong way, in this context, what it means is purpose, like knowing your purpose for life.
Spiritual doesn't have to
So
be religion. Spiritual just,
exactly.
yeah, where's your sense of purpose,
Yeah.
your sense of wonder and
Yeah.
awe?
What's your North Star?
Yes.
Right. So it's all these different things, like
Yeah.
occupational, intellectual, all these different things.
Love that we clarified that.
And you rate 0 to 10
Yeah.
where you're at in each of these.
Mm-hmm.
And then you want to connect the dots. Oftentimes when clients first start working with me, it's like, and then you look at it and you're like, if that was a real wheel, how well would it roll?
Ooh.
Probably not very well.
No.
Right. So where are you flat? Where are you inflated? Right. And then you can, if you're working with me, we're going to do it together because I'm going to make sure that you're honest with yourself. But if you're doing it solo, really try to be devil's advocate here, right? Everything is connected.
Yeah.
Right. So if work is a 10, like, because you're crushing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm on top, like, it's a game, like, I've worked so hard, I got the corner office, the whatever, like, then finances are probably high,
Mm-hmm.
but your social life is probably shit.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe your relationships, right? Like, so at what cost? If that doesn't matter to you, that's fine. There is no judgment. But if it matters to you, that's where we start rewriting the definition of what your normal is, what your work-life integration or work-life balance is.
Right.
Right. So that we can get it to the as well-rounded as you want it to be at this stage of life.
Yeah. And I think that's an important thing, the well-rounded. I love what you're saying. I want to go back to this for a second for emphasis. And yes, if everybody's, looking this up, I know exactly what you're talking about. But I love where you said, think about when you connect the dots on what those rankings are going to be on those elements around your wheel. If that were a wheel, what kind of ride would you be getting? And if you feel like your life is kind of reflected in the, and that's the whole exercise, right?
Yeah.
That imagery is so important, because when we feel like I'm not getting a smooth, nice ride, my life feels lumpy, bumpy, and all over the place, it's probably because if you did this exercise. And yeah, be honest. Why would you lie to yourself? Hello? Like, it's bad enough you lie to other people. Don't lie to yourself. Get honest. That's going to be a perfect visual indicator that, the idea of the smoother ride comes from, and I love the term, well-rounded. And, hey, you might, to your point, you might be making huge sacrifices in one area or another, and maybe for all the right reasons.
Yeah.
However, that can only be sustained for so long. The long-term sustainability of being out of balance and having this bumpy, lumpy kind of ride in your life is exhausting, right? This is where you can't keep it up over the long term, and we're not and designed as human beings to keep up any one particular thing or be lacking any one particular thing for an extended period.
I think so. You said something like the best of reasons, right? So I think it's important because I think you and I both work with similar individuals, right? We are like, they're kind of us, right? Those high achievers, like we're, what's like always leveling up, like what's next?
I want to win.
So for many different reasons, right? And so here's an example, because I think like no one gets to these stages because they wanted to. Like, no, like, so burnout isn't an overnight, like, I woke up, I was like, oh, I'm burnt out, right? It's a slow thing that you don't realize is happening until it happens, right? It's like gaining weight. Like, you're like, maybe I'm just bloated. Oh, did I gain like 50 pounds overnight? No, but that's how it feels.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's lack of awareness. It's normalization, right? There's this fancy term called social contagion. And when everyone around you is doing the thing, I know I just dropped that on you. It's called social contagion, right? So it's basically like, if I yawn, you yawn. Now we're both going to yawn. But
like quitting is contagious. We've seen,
right. Like burnout is contagious, right?
Yeah.
Workaholism is contagious. Like when your spouse or your best friend or even just a good friend are obese, you're more likely to become obese or have obesity, right? it's that idea of like common and normal aren't the same thing, but because things are so common, we think they're normal.
And we get
And so,
in these
and
environments
you get normalized
where
to
we
it.
think that high stress is normal. Or
Right. Like, oh, adulthood should suck because everyone else is on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram, like bitching about adulthood. Right. So like, yeah.
Yeah. Marriage is a ball and chain because everybody I know talks about marriage like it's a ball and chain. Well, yeah, I guess it's hard to see the world that
and every greeting card says as much. Right. So here's an example, right, of somebody who is on the path to burnout, probably wouldn't say that they are, and it is for the best of intentions. Right. So, and if you're listening to this and you don't work, like you don't leave your office to work, like you'll get the point of the story, right? I'm going to go with like a more traditional kind of work, like where they're commuting, right? So guy goes, to the office. It's like maybe 45-minute, an hour long commute. Cause guess what? Across America, even with the remote and hybrid, like work commutes are going up because of pricing and blah, blah, blah. So commuting 45 minutes to an hour each way, gets to work early. And what happens? Well, people are interrupting in his office and the dings and then and then they emails and then he has to do this and he has to do this. And then there's the phone call and somebody just stops by for a minute and it's never a minute. And then the meeting runs long and then like, well, now I've got to do this. And the next thing you know, has he even eaten breakfast? Probably not. So he's getting a crash. So then what does he do? He runs to get lunch, but he's behind. So he eats at his desk. And so then what happens? Well, now he's kind of tired and bored because it's the afternoon lull when all the coffees he had, the caffeine, I'll come back to if anybody wants to know the nerdiness of like what actually is happening here, like I can tell you. But basically the caffeine is wearing off. We'll just use it in layman's terms. And so now you're starting to have this crash. So what does he do? Well, he doesn't have time for a real break. He doesn't think about going outside because that's weird, right? To like get a dose of sunlight. Goes to the vending machine. There's no time for that.
Keep going.
But there's time to go to the vending machine or the break room and grab a couple of probably sugary snacks or snacks that seem salty but actually have sugar. And then there's the so fast food, junk food, highly palatable food, like ultra processed food, whatever you want to call it. And then there's the sodas and the coffees with all the sugar and all the things. So then he has that, grinds on. And he was going to leave work early, but now he's behind. So he can't leave work on time. So he's staying late, but is what it is. This was supposed to be the day that he was going to hit the gym on the way home and get back into the group. But now it's not the day he's going to hit the gym because he had to work late because of. So now he's driving home and now the traffic is worse because it's later and he's stuck and he's stuck and he's stuck and he's stuck. And so now he comes into the house and what happens? He's super grouchy. He's missed dinner with the family. They're pissed at him because he's missed dinner with the family. He's pissed that they're pissed. And he's had a frustrating day and all he wants is a beer.
For all this for you, by the way.
Exactly.
Appreciation for me.
So, and that's the thing is that, so that's the thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was the best of intention because he sees himself, and this is completely could be a woman. She sees themselves as a provider.
Heroic.
That is their identity.
Heroic.
But in their mind, providing means working for the paycheck because that's the culture we have.
Yes.
Not providing might mean asking the boss, hey, 2 or 3 days a week, could I leave at 4:30? You get home, maybe you work out, maybe you don't. That's another battle. You have dinner with the family, if that's the way you want it. And then you finish up work at home.
Yeah.
And then you actually go to bed and get at least 7 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
So that when you wake up, you have the cognitive abilities to deal with all of the shit that's going to come at you.
Yeah.
Right. And there's many other things that we would adjust in this like boundaries and communication and all the stuff. But it's not because it's not because you want to live that life. It's because one, everyone else is living that life. So you think it's normal and how dare you think it's different? You should have something different or do anything different. That's the way it is. Yeah. But also because you are a hard worker, you're an achiever, you want to get somewhere in your career because that brings you personal fulfillment and you want to provide for your family because that you love them.
Right. Yeah. And then you perpetuate this grind over and over. And then, by the way, you're also back in we could do episode after episode, just the insanity. But this kind of stuff literally feeds itself because then you're back in this sleep deprived cycle of then I'm going to look to, a level of chemical dependency on, you know, I'm going to look for my sugars and my caffeines and my this and that's to perk me up to
And the alcohol to calm you down, and then the social media and the whatever.
And I will say, and in the larger context of this, you know, warning, I know for a fact when I was a high school teacher back in the day, and this was, you know, when things weren't even nearly quite, I would say, the rat race that they are now. I guarantee you, I had students who clearly suffered from, you know, when you're talking about this person and their dynamic. Let me tell you something. Your kids are, when push comes to shove, they are far more likely to want to have you and your time than the things that you buy for them because you work 85 hours a week. I mean, I really had students who, like, their parents worked and worked and worked, and the kids didn't really see the parents, and the parents there, you know, and how do you fill that guilt gap? You buy them shit. So you give them things. What they want is you. And so this story that you told, I think this was perfectly illustrating this, you know, better to back down a bit and have, you know, leave work early and go play with your kid, walk the dog, talk to your spouse. I mean, have the, you know, back to that wheel that we were talking about. Where are your relationships at and all that? And what do they and what do they want? And you'll find that that enriches it a lot better. You know, at the end of the day, money will buy you comfort, but it really can't buy you a whole lot of happiness. And we know this because look at all the miserable celebrities.
There's and I posted, there's like so many threads.
Oh yeah.
Which we knew was going to happen when we start talking. So thread one,
yeah,
just go, like, please go. I won't go on this too much, but like, I put it on Instagram. I put it on YouTube. Happiness is bullshit. I'm not anti-happiness. It's just, it's fleeting by design. So if you're chasing happiness, you're just setting yourself up for perpetual failure. There's another thing to go chase.
Yes.
Two, I want to be cognizant of the people listening, some of whom I mean are in my circle, and I know, right? And the client, you know, whoever, there are certainly going to be times when you have to work late.
Yeah.
Or long, or on the weekends, sometimes by choice, sometimes by necessity. So I don't think either of us is saying that every day you have to, like, we're going to go back to the Cleavers and the, you know, whatever, like Donna Reed and all that. Like, that is not what we're saying. We're saying that in your family dynamic, just if it's not working for you, have the conversation about what the family needs. If you don't have a family and you want one, look at your schedule. What, you know, it's that idea of show me your schedule, I'll show you your priorities.
Yeah.
And there may be a phase in that life when, like, oh shit, we didn't save enough for college. Okay, who's in the busy season? Who can lean in? Who's making more money? How can we make that adjustment as a family? There's going to be there's going to be shifts. It's not always going to be 9 to 5.
Right.
But the point is that you are intentionally making these choices.
Hmm?
Not just going, oh shit, looking back and realizing that you didn't enjoy life and that you feel like you didn't choose yours.
And then unfortunately too, the spillover can be that not only was it less enjoyable for you, what ripple effect did you have with the people around you? What impact did you have on your loved one, whoever that may be? Whether that's your spouse, your children, your friends, your extended family, your community. Oh, all the other things I coulda, woulda, shoulda. You know, there's one thing, and you know, the algorithm feeds all kinds of stuff. We know this. I've had very interesting things lately. For whatever reason, they're cropping up, but it was around the and this could be a whole other episode too. We've got about 15 episodes yet to go between the two of you. You know, when you look at people who actually spend time with people who are dying,
yeah,
like, let's put it in that the toughest of perspectives. You know, nobody's a friend of mine from a long time ago said this, and this always stuck with me. You know, do you want at the end of your life, do you want your headstone, your memorial plaque, whatever it is, do you want to be remembered as the person who cleaned out their inbox? Oh, you know, Michelle Arntz. We always fondly remember her as the one who always did her to-do list. That is not what I want to be remembered for. Gotta, you know. So when you think about that, what people regret is typically not things about that nobody's sitting there going, I wish I'd made more money,
It's the relationships.
more hours. It's
Yeah.
yes, that's important. It is a means to get other things. And so
The
I love what you're saying in this space
yeah.
about what are your needs now, what are your needs for later. That and I think one of the biggest nuggets out of all this is, to your point, nobody wakes up one day or goes to their high school counselor or goes to their career coach or whoever they've got. I hope you got a career coach. If you're watching or listening, you should. Um, I don't think you just wake up one morning and go, you know, I just I just really want to figure out how I make a mess of things and how I push myself to my absolute limits and get into this cascade like you described of things that actually make it worse for you, not better. We do fall into these traps, meaning well, but not catching on to how the one thing leads to the next, and that nothing happens in a vacuum. Nothing happens.
So I think like it's something that's really important for people to understand is this idea of, it's not an idea, it's a fact. Your environment shapes your behaviors and your thoughts more than you could possibly
Yeah.
know.
That's where company culture, for example, makes a big dent.
Everything.
What's it like? I mean, that's
Everything.
just one thin slice of it, but that's
Environment. So your lighting, your air quality, your air temperature, the colors, the sounds, the music, every, and not just at work,
yeah.
everything. Like, so part of my dissertation is looking at what's called psychological well-being or eudaimonic well-being. And just, you don't need to know what that means, but essentially like personal fulfillment. So the like becoming the best version of yourself.
Mhm.
And one of the pieces of that is called environmental mastery. It doesn't mean, I mean, yes, please support the environment, but it doesn't mean that. It means like, can you recognize the influences around you?
Hmm.
And I believe it was oh my God, Atomic Habits.
Oh yeah, Atomic Habits.
Oh,
Can't remember the name.
wow, I totally
I
just
know
blanked
the book.
on his name, which is ridiculous. But anyways, so he was, I believe it was in that book, he was talking about the invisible hand concept in economics, right? In our lives, the invisible hand is the environment.
Right.
So, and there's variations, but even just as an example, right? Colors like red and yellow and orange, typically there's cultural differences. So, I mean, there's always, for the people that look into this, I understand there's always exceptions and
Color
nuances. But
psychology. Yeah.
yes, like the
Yeah.
analyst in me is coming out. But broadly speaking, those colors tend to evoke certain responses,
Mhm.
which is why you see them on fast food. Blues, greens are soothing. You're probably not going to see them on fast food. You're going to see them at hospitals and care centers and wellness retreats.
Appetite suppressant, unless you're really into green salad. I mean, it's green. If you
Yeah,
want to have an appetite suppressant,
right.
eat your kitchen green. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the colors of the plates, the sizes of the plates.
Yeah.
It's not a foolproof plan, but
Right.
it typically,
Right.
right?
Is it an
So,
energizing color? Is it a soothing, calming color?
right, the music, the best way to change, like to set yourself up in the day and unwind at night, like on the way home, use your car as your mood generator.
Yeah.
I would have a playlist going into the office and I would have a playlist coming out of the office, right?
And they should
Um,
not be the same playlist.
they should not be the same place. It's that joke, right? Like, have you seen this meme going around on social media where it's like, when you get in your car in the morning and it like blasting like at you and you're like, whoa, I am not the same person I was last night.
Yeah.
That's true. You
Yeah.
aren't.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you aren't.
Yeah, yeah. And if you're okay, if you want, I mean, hey, listen, whatever your musical choices are, but if you're gonna play like blast, like if you were playing hardcore, heavy blasting metal music or something like that in traffic, you're gonna get edgy.
Yeah.
There's a recipe for road rage right there because, as opposed to like, what if you, calm.
Unless it's a cathartic thing for you, right? Unless it's cathartic.
Right.
So how are you using
What's
it,
the
right? What do you
point of
need,
it? Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like, yeah.
But you're not
Like
gonna
I'll
you're not gonna calm your ass down in a traffic jam by listening to death metal.
I put on my karaoke playlist. I just have a little karaoke party in my car or like an audiobook I'm like binging, something like that. And like, so I can reframe it, right? Like, oh, this isn't a waste of time. Like I get some time to myself to listen to my book or just, sing it out or whatever.
Yeah. Love that.
But yeah, anyways.
I do the same, depending what it is. I either want to, listen to a podcast or listen to something, or yes, sometimes I put on sometimes on my, depending on what the drive's going to be and what mood I'm in. Yes, I put on my station I like to listen to musicals, and I will sing along badly. But and it doesn't matter. Yeah, it's my own personal.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. And I think that could be a whole other episode for us right there. But I think
I think we just started a new show.
I know. Talked about again. None of these things happen in isolation. It starts at that level of, have we been given the opportunity and the tools to even take a moment to reflect and build our self-awareness to say, what is it that I want? What is it that I need?
Most people haven't.
Most people haven't. So
that's why that's why you need to work with like someone, please, like make sure they're credentialed. Someone credentialed to help you teach these skills, because what is the question that we're always asking kids? What do you want to be when you grow up? Which basically means, what do you want to do? We never ask them, unless you're listening to this and you're making a note, what kind of life do you want to live?
Bigger, badder, bolder. That's the more fundamental thing that's what we never taught.
And it's not too late to ask yourself that question.
Never. And I love that. So, as we're kind of gonna, tail out here on this, I just feel like, what can you do to start being more aware of yourself, your needs, your desires? Like, what is that life that you want to live? How rounded are you in the components of that life that you want to live? Are you having a hinky jinky bumpy ride right now? It's not that you can't fix that, or you can't change that. And you probably want and need some help getting there. That is okay. But being able to get that awareness, get those tools, assess that, build that knowledge and start making those changes. And then, to your point, understanding that everything around us is going to have an influence on that. So let's close it out by saying, surround yourself with the kind of people who lift you up instead of drag you down, who fill your cup, if you will, instead of draining it, who are on the same page with you about these things, who, get it and understand it. Because and from a business standpoint, I would say that, and I'll just, follow the mind leap for a sec. That's where the culture thing comes in. Think about, do you want to work with people in organizations that allow you to say things like, hey, I recognize, and follow me for a sec on this one. There's no point in having something like, we're going to do summer hours. We have a summer hours policy, and everybody can, work their extra whatever Monday through Thursday and then start their weekend at noon on Friday. If, to your point, if the conditioning and the conditions are that nobody's going to dare brave doing that because it's on paper over here, but in practice, nobody's allowed to do it because leaders don't do it. Okay. How do we, do you want to work in that environment, or do you want to find the spaces and places that say, we honor our people, we see you as a holistic human being who has something outside of this space that matters too, and that, we are going to support you, because at the end game, from a business leader standpoint, is the better and more rounded you are as a leader and your people are working for you, the better your business is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, just like the cap on that is just, if you can't do it for yourself, get some help to figure out, again, like that self-awareness, like what's important to me, what do I need, and remember that you are what you become, what you are around. Exactly. Awesome. Listen, we are going to have to talk way more about this. I wish we could, we could have a 15-hour marathon. We are going to touch on this again. Rachel, it was such a pleasure to have you on this episode of Nuggets with Sauce. Thank you, everybody, for
Thank you.
I hope you got some good nuggets and some good sauciness to chew on and make some changes for yourselves, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Nuggets with Sauce. I hope we fed your appetite for insights and information on how to improve your business. Be sure to like and subscribe so you never go hungry for more valuable thought leadership.